Okay, guys, so for the topic number two, we have erosion. Erosion is the geological process in which earthen materials are worn away and transported by natural forces such as wind and water. A similar process, watering breaks down or sobs rock, but does not involve movement. Okay, so this means that there's two processes, one with wind, one with water. The one with wind is erosion, the one with water is watering. Erosion is the opposite to deposition. Okay, erosion is when there is no materials. They take the materials, the wind take the materials out of the ground, and deposition is when materials come to the ground and they are deposited there. The geological process in which earthen materials are deposited in or built up a landform. Most erosion is performed by liquid water, wind, or ice, usually in the form of glacier. If the wind is dusty, or water or glacial ice is muddy, erosion is taking place. The brown color indicates that bits of rock and soil are suspended in the fluid, air or water, and being transported from one place to another. This is transported material is called sediment. Physical erosion. The physical erosion describes the process of rocks changing their physical properties without changing the basic chemical composition. Physical erosion often causes rocks to get smaller or smoother. Rocks erode through physical erosion, often for clastic sediments. Clastic sediments are composed of fragments of older rocks that have been transported from their place of origin. Landslides and other forms of mass wasting are associated with physical watering. This process causes rocks to dislodge from hillsides and crumble as they tumble down a slope. Plant growth can also contribute to physical erosion in a process called bioerosion. Plants break up earthen materials as they take root and can create cracks and crevices in the rocks they encounter. What's the meaning of this? That when a plant is growing up, they can contribute to the erosion, and this is called bioerosion. Ice and liquid water can also contribute to physical erosion as their movement forces rocks to crash together or crack apart. Some rocks shatter and crumble, while the others worn away. River rocks are often much smoother than rocks found elsewhere, for instance because they have been eroded by constant contact with other river rocks. So the water and the ice move rocks and they crash together and they crack apart. So they shatter and they crumble, and that creates movement and that creates the erosion because they find elsewhere they are much smoother and they roll over, and that creates another environment. Next one, erosion by water. Liquid water is the major agent of erosion on Earth. Rain, rivers, floods, and lakes, and often in the ocean carry away bits of soil and sand and slowly wash away the sediment. Rainfall produces four types of soil erosion: splash erosion, sheet erosion, rill erosion, and gully erosion. Splash erosion describes the impact of falling raindrop, which can scatter thin soil particles as far as 0.6 meters, 2 feet. Sheet erosion describes erosion caused by runoff. Rill erosion describes erosion that takes place as runoff develops in discrete streams, rills. Finally, gully eruption is the stage in which soil particles are transported through the large channels. Gullies carry water for brief periods of time during rainfall and snowmelt, but appear as small valleys of crevasse during dry seasons. Okay, valley erosion. Right now we're living in Puebla. Puebla is a valley. Okay, so this is concerning to us. Valley erosion is the process in which rushing streams and rivers wear away their tanks, creating a large and larger valleys. The Fish River Canyon and the southern Namibia is the largest canyon in Africa and product of valley erosion. Over millions of years, the Fish River wore away the hard gneiss bedrock, carving a canyon about 160 kilometers, 99 miles in length, 24 kilometers, 17 miles wide, and 550 meters, 1,084 feet deep. So it's like Puebla, for example, how this happened, the valley erosion, because maybe before us, the Valley of Puebla was a really amazing and big lake. But because of erosion and because uh, the lake just disappear, that's the erosion. It means it is creating a sterile terrain or landform after the river disappear. And the biggest um, canyons that we have is in, for example, Las Vegas, in Nevada, or in the southern Namibia, the Fish River, or in South Africa. We have these big valleys that they are they have this valley erosion. The ocean is a huge form of erosion. Coastal erosion, the wearing away of rocks, earth, or sand on the beach, can change the shape of the entire coastlines. During the process of coastal erosion, waves pound rocks into pebbles and pebbles into sand. Waves and currents sometimes transport sand away from beaches, moving the coastline further inland, which it means that the sand moves and it takes more coastline. Okay, the coastline gets bigger. Coastal erosion can have a huge impact on human settlement, as well as coastal ecosystems. The Cape of Hatteras lighthouse, for example, was nearly destroyed by coastal erosion. The Cape Hatteras lighthouse was built on the outer banks, a series of barrier islands of the coast of the U.S. state of the North Carolina in 1870. At the time, the lighthouse was nearly 457 meters from the ocean, but over time the ocean eroded most of the beach near the lighthouse, which it means the beach was very far from the lighthouse, but because of time and because of erosion, from time to time it came closer, and it almost disappeared. The Cape Hatteras, and this is the coastal erosion. So many people thought that the lighthouse would collapse during this strong storm. Instead, it was moved 88 meters inland. The battering force of the ocean waves also erodes seaside cliff. The action of erosion can create an array of coastal landscape features. For example, erosion can be boreholes that form caves. When the water breaks through the back of the cave, it can create an arc. Have you seen this image where there is a really big arc on the ocean? That's why, because it throws to caves and just destroys that. The continual pounding of the caves can cause to the top of the arch to fall, leaving nothing but rock columns called sea stacks. The seven remaining sea stacks of the 12 Aposes Marine National Park in Victoria, Australia, are among the most dramatic and well known of these features of coastal erosion. Okay, erosion by wind. Wind is a powerful agent of erosion. Aeolian, wind-driven process constantly transport dust, sand, and ash from one place to another. Wind can sometimes blow sand into towering dunes. Some sand dunes in the Badain Ayarat section on the Gobi Desert in China for example, reach more than 400 kilometers high. In dry areas, wind-blown sand can blast against a rock with tremendous force, slowly wearing away the soft rock. It polishes rocks and cliffs until they are smooth, giving the stone a so-called desert vanish. Wind is responsible for the eroded features that give Arch National Park in the US state of Utah its name, because it's made of arches. So wind can also erode material until little remains at all. Bentifacts are rocks that have been scooped by wind. Erosion. The enormous chalk formations in the White Desert of Egypt are bentifacts carved by thousands of years of wind, roaring through the flat landscape. Some of the most destructive examples of the wind erosion are the dust storms characterized the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. Okay, in North America, made brittle by years and drought and agriculture mismanagement, millions of tons of valuable topsoil were eroded away by strong winds in what came to be known as black blizzards. Blizzard is a storm. These dust storms devastate local economies, forcing thousands of people who depend on agriculture for their livelihoods to migrate. And then we have erosion by ice. Ice, usually in the form of glaciers, can erode the earth and create dramatic landforms in frigid areas and on some mountain tops. Glaciers move slowly downhill and across the land, and as they move, they transport everything in their path, from tiny grains of sand to huge boulders. Rocks carried by glaciers scrape against the ground below, eroding both the ground and the rocks. In this way, glaciers grind up rocks and scrape away the soil. Moving glaciers rouge out basins and form step-sided mountain valleys. And road sediment called moraine is often visible on and around glaciers. Several times in Earth's history, vast glaciers cover parts of the northern hemisphere. These glacial periods are known as ice ages. Ice age glaciers carve much of the modern northern North America and European landscape. Ice age glaciers skirt the ground to form what are now the Finger Lakes in the US state of New York. For example, they cage forts deep inlets along the coast of Scandinavia. The north of Glacier eroded Cape Cod Bay, Massachusetts, and formed the recognizable fishhook shape of Cape Cod itself. Today, in places such as Greenland and Antarctica, glaciers continue to erode the earth. Ice sheets there can be more than a mile thick, making it difficult for scientists to measure speed and patterns of erosion. However, ice sheets do erode remarkably quickly, as much as half of centimeter, 2 inches every year. Other forces of erosion. Thermal erosion describes the erosion of permafrost along river or coastline. Warm temperatures can cause ice-rich permafrost to break off the coastlines in huge chunks, often carrying valuable topsoil and vegetation with them. These enrolled floating islands can be disintegrated into the ocean or even crash into another piece of land, helping spread new life to different landscapes. Mass wasting describes the downward movement of rocks, soil, and vegetation. Mass wasting incidents include landslides, rock slides, and avalanches. Mass wasting can erode and transport millions of tons of earth, reshaping hills and mountains and often devastating communities in its path. Factors of impacting erosion. Some of the natural factors impacting erosion in a landscape include climate, topography, vegetation, and tectonic activity. Climate is perhaps the most influential force impacting the effect of erosion on a landscape. Climate includes precipitation and wind. Climate also includes seasonal variability, which influences the likelihood of weathering. Sediments being transported during the weather events such as snow melt, breeze, or hurricane. The topography, the shape of the surface features of area can contribute to how erosion impacts the area. The earthen floodplains of river valleys are much more prone to erosion than rocky flood channels, which may take centuries to erode. Soft rock like chalk will erode more quickly than hard rocks like granite. Vegetation can slow impact of erosion. Plant roots adhere to soil and rock particles, preventing their transport during rainfall or wind events. Tree shrubs and other plants can even limit the impact of mass wasting events, such as landslides and other natural hazards, such as hurricanes. Deserts, which generally lack thick vegetation, are often the most eroded landscape on the planet. Finally, tectonic activity shapes the landscape itself and thus influence the way erosion impacts an area. Tectonic uplift, for example, causes one part of the landscape to rise higher than others. In a span of about 5 million years, the tectonic uplift caused the Colorado River to cut deeper and deeper into the Colorado Plateau, land in what is known the U.S. state of Arizona. It eventually formed the Great Canyon, which is more than 1,600 meters, 1 mile deep, and as much as 29 kilometers, 18 miles, wide in some places. So the point of this is that actually the Great Canyon is product of the sediments. It's product of the erosion. And for this class, I'm going to stop right here until the human erosion and people, sorry. And the poison soils and sediment is going to be for the next class.